You have been marked by a day you cannot ignore, and the pressure of it is already in your chest. Something in this Friday feels like it is asking to be recognized before it is understood, and that tension can make even a quiet room feel loud. You may have gone through the morning trying to act normal, but the signal keeps returning, as if your spirit has noticed what your mind has not finished naming. The truth is that when a message like this reaches you, it usually lands first as a weight, then as a question, then as a deep need for clarity. And if you have been sensing that your season is being read in a way your habits cannot explain, you need something that helps you recognize the moment without losing your footing. That is why I want to point you to the Call of the Chosen, a 30-day journey, because it can help you identify what you are living and understand why it feels so charged. To access the ebook, go now to the top of the comments and click the link in the pinned comment. You do not need to keep guessing your way through this hour. You only need to stay honest enough to notice what has already been speaking. Maybe the first sign has not been dramatic at all. Maybe it has looked like waking before sunrise with a heavy mind, or standing at the sink longer than usual, or carrying your phone around without opening the messages that wait there. Some mornings the body knows before the words arrive, and the shoulders tighten while the heart tries to pretend nothing is happening. You begin to move through ordinary tasks, yet each task feels slightly displaced, as though your attention is half in the room and half somewhere else. That kind of inner split can wear you down because what is unspoken still asks for energy. And when you keep carrying a quiet burden without naming it, even simple decisions start to feel like tests you did not study for. What this title carries is not a demand for you to force a result, but a reminder that recognition matters before response. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. There are seasons when God does not ask you to manufacture certainty. He asks you to notice what is developing, what is closing, and what is being prepared in you. You may not yet know whether this is a moment of waiting, pruning, redirection, or preparation, but the difference matters more than you think. When you know what kind of season you are in, you stop misreading every delay as rejection and every silence as absence. That clarity does not remove the tension, but it keeps the tension from becoming confusion. And confusion is expensive because it makes you spend your strength in places that never needed it. Maybe today looked ordinary from the outside, but your insides told a different story. You answered a message, folded clothes, checked the clock, and still felt as if a question was standing in the middle of the room with you. That is how these moments often arrive. They do not always announce themselves with thunder. Sometimes they slip in through the daily routine and sit beside you at the table. You may even have tried to ignore the feeling by staying busy, but the signal has a way of reappearing when the house gets quiet. And when your silence becomes the only place where the truth can be heard, you realize that distraction has not solved anything. It has only postponed your listening. I know how easy it is to keep pushing through while pretending that uncertainty is not shaping you. But if your heart has been circling the same question, this is the kind of moment where a clear guide can steady you. The Call of the Chosen. A 30-day journey gives you a way to trace what you are sensing, so you can understand the season instead of arguing with it. It helps you move from vague pressure into specific discernment, which is often the difference between panic and peace. If you have been wanting to know what to pray, how to think, and how to stop treating every silence like a verdict, go now to the top of the comments and click the link in the pinned comment. The peace you need starts with naming the moment you are actually in. The next step becomes lighter when the fog begins to lift. What makes this harder is the noise around you. Someone else seems to be moving faster, another person appears more settled, and your own path can start to feel delayed by comparison. Then pressure enters, dressed up as urgency, telling you to prove, perform, or force what has not yet ripened. That voice is rarely gentle. It wants you to confuse motion with meaning and speed with direction. It makes you think that if you are not advancing visibly, you are falling behind spiritually. But not every quiet stretch is empty, and not every hidden stretch is inactive. Some of the most important work happens while nothing visible seems to be happening at all. Joseph understood that kind of stretch. He had a dream that meant something, but the road to its understanding took him through waiting, misunderstanding, and places that did not look like promise at all. He had to live for a while with a word before he lived into its fulfillment, and that is not a small thing. In your life, too, there may be a gap between what you sensed and what you can yet explain. That gap can produce restlessness if you let other voices define it for you. But if you let wisdom stay in the room, you begin to see that ordinary life is often where formation deepens. The dinner table, the commute, the work email, the quiet walk, the paused reply, these are not insignificant if they are teaching you how to listen. The cost of ignoring the signal is not always obvious at first. You may keep functioning, keep replying, keep meeting deadlines, and still notice your inner world thinning out. Repeated cycles can make you tired in places that sleep does not fix. You begin to read the same book of worry on different days, only with new details added to the margin. A misread season can make you hard toward your own life, because when you do not understand what God is doing, you start defending yourself against what is actually forming you. That is how peace erodes little by little. Not all at once, but through a slow habit of overlooking what your spirit has already noticed. And the Friday in the title matters because it marks a boundary, not a guarantee. A boundary is a place where reflection sharpens. It is a place where you stop pretending the question is small. If you have been sensing that something in you needs to be acknowledged, then you are already standing at a threshold, and thresholds ask for attention. Type 111 in the comments as a simple confirmation that you are paying attention and crossing this moment with purpose. Then return to the narration and keep listening. Because once you recognize the threshold, you can stop wandering in circles around it. The deeper conflict is not just that you do not know enough. It is that part of you may be trying to control what only surrender can clarify. You can feel that in the mind when it keeps rehearsing outcomes, and in the body when it cannot fully rest even after the day is over. The thoughts keep checking the door, while the heart keeps trying to decide whether to trust what has not yet fully arrived. That inner strain is often where discernment begins, because it reveals how much energy you are spending trying to protect yourself from disappointment. But protection built on fear can become a cage, and a cage can look like wisdom if you have lived inside it long enough. This is where recognition alone is not enough. You can sense that the signal is real and still need help with what to do next. That is why the next step matters so much, not just naming the season, but understanding how to move inside it without becoming frantic. I want to point you again to the Call of the Chosen, a 30-day journey, because it can serve as a practical companion when your own thinking feels tangled. It can help you organize prayer, notice what is ending, and distinguish waiting from rebuilding. Many readers who arrived feeling confused or tired of waiting said the material helped them understand their season more clearly, organize their prayers, or stop interpreting every silence as abandonment. To access the ebook, go now to the top of the comments and click the link in the pinned comment. You are not weak for needing clarity. You are wise for seeking it before the pressure decides for you. There is a difference between a body that is tired and a spirit that is unsettled, though the two can feel close together. Sometimes your exhaustion is physical, plain and simple, and sometimes it is the fatigue that comes from carrying unresolved meaning. The distinction matters because what soothes one does not always heal the other. Rest can help, but rest alone cannot interpret a season. A quiet evening can lower the volume, yet the question may still remain standing there when you wake up. That is why you must learn to listen without collapsing every sensation into the same conclusion. Not every tension is danger. Not every heaviness is defeat. And not every delay is denial. The people around you can also shape what you hear. A conversation can sharpen discernment, or it can blur it if it is driven by envy, fear, or constant comparison. Some environments reward speed and punish patience, which is exactly why they can confuse a soul that is trying to hear carefully. You may notice that certain rooms make you feel rushed, while others make you feel exposed, as if everything must be solved immediately. Discernment does not call you to suspicion, but it does call you to honesty. You do not need to distrust everyone in order to protect what God is forming in you. You only need to notice where your inner clarity gets thinner and where it becomes stronger. The pressure of noise is often stronger when you are tired. That is when the mind reaches for simple answers and the heart reaches for immediate relief. If the answer does not come quickly, you can start making small compromises with your own peace, just so the ache will quiet down. Yet haste rarely heals the root, it just wraps urgency around it. And when the day gets crowded, the soul can mistake activity for progress. This is why some waiting seasons feel heavier than others. They are not only asking you to endure time, they are asking you to resist the false comfort of speed. There may come a point when you realize that you are not merely waiting for something out there. You are being asked to face something in here. That can be sobering, but it is also kind, because it means your life is not random. The tension you feel is pointing to a deeper place where fear has been negotiating with truth. And when that negotiation continues too long, you stop trusting the quiet signals that were meant to guide you. The choice is not between pressure and passivity. It is between fear and faithful attention. One distorts the moment, while the other helps you meet it. Imagine a seed held inside the dark earth. No one applauds it there. No one sees the slow work happening beneath the surface. Yet that hidden place is not wasted, because roots are being formed where no stage could ever hold them. The seed does not become what it is by rushing out of the soil in panic. It becomes by remaining where it has been placed until the right movement begins. That is the first shape of the metaphor you need now. Your season may feel concealed, but concealment is not the same as abandonment. What is hidden is often being protected from premature exposure. There are pressures under the soil, too. The dirt is heavy, the night is long, and the seed cannot compare itself to anything above ground because it has no access to that view. It has only pressure, stillness, and the silent insistence of life within it. In your own life, this can look like a long stretch where nothing obvious validates what you sense. The waiting can feel like a closed hand around your progress. But hidden formation often looks unimpressive before it looks fruitful. That does not mean nothing is happening. It means the work is happening in a place that does not entertain applause. And there are moments when the soil itself resists. Stones sit in the way, dryness remains in the ground, the surface may seem unchanged for a long time, and that delay can tempt you to question whether anything living is happening at all. But the problem is not always that the seed is failing. Sometimes the condition is simply not visible yet. The listener in you wants proof. The deeper part of you needs trust. That is why you cannot always measure progress by what can be seen immediately. Some developments are patient by nature, and patience is not passivity when it is joined to obedience. Then comes the first movement upward, often quiet enough to miss if you are not paying attention. A crack appears in what had been sealed. Something small presses toward light. The change may not look dramatic, but it is decisive. The hidden thing has begun to answer the call above it, and that answer does not erase the pressure of the process. It only reveals that the pressure was not meaningless. In the same way, your Friday may be a point where the hidden work begins to reach for recognition, not as a spectacle, but as a faithful emergence. What was buried is not done. It is beginning. Say this with me in your own way. I am awake. Let it be a short phrase, not a performance, just a simple way of naming that you are not sleeping through what matters. Type, I am awake in the comments, then return here and keep listening. Sometimes the first sign of readiness is not noise, but honesty. And honesty is enough to keep the door open for what comes next. Now return with that awareness, because the point is not to admire the seed, but to understand yourself through it. You are not asked to become louder than your season. You are asked to remain faithful within it. That means you do not rush the hidden work, and you do not despise it either. You keep noticing, keep praying, keep aligning, even when the visible part has not yet appeared. This is how return begins, not with performance, but with settled attention. The moment you stop forcing the soil, you become able to receive the shape of what is growing. In ordinary life, that can look like smaller obedience than you expected. You answer the message with more care than panic. You leave the room before a conversation hardens into conflict. You take the walk instead of spiraling in your chair. You open the Bible without trying to make it perform for your mood. None of that is flashy, but all of it is real. Faithfulness often looks like a slower hand and a clearer mind. It is not a grand speech. It is the next right thing done without self-contempt. The second practice is to change what you do with silence. Instead of treating every quiet stretch as abandonment, treat it as a place to observe. Ask what the silence is showing you about your reactions, your expectations, and your need for control. Write down what feels urgent and what remains steady after the emotion settles. You will learn that some fears shrink when they are named, and some assumptions lose their power when they are examined carefully. The goal is not to find drama in every quiet moment, but to train your attention to notice what is real. There may also be boundaries that serve you better than constant availability. Not every door needs to stay open just because it can. Not every request deserves immediate yes. Not every conversation belongs to the version of you that is already tired. Mercy sometimes looks like limits, because limits protect what is still forming. If you are in a season of recognition, then one act of wisdom may be to choose where your energy goes. That choice is not selfish, it is stewardship. And stewardship makes room for the right things to mature. A clear decision may be waiting for you in the simplest form. Stop feeding what keeps you confused. That can mean stepping back from a pattern that keeps your mind restless. It can mean refusing to rehearse outcomes you cannot control. It can mean speaking more slowly so fear does not speak first. The point is not to make yourself powerful. It is to make yourself available. The life you are trying to hear will not always shout over your distractions. Sometimes it waits for your attention to become quiet enough to receive it. Like this piece of the process, if it is landing in you, like the message now, as a silent amen. Let the action be simple and wordless, just a quiet agreement that you are receiving the truth of it. Then come back and keep going. Because agreement is not the finish line. It is the place where your heart stops resisting what it already knows. You may notice that what is returning in you is not certainty about every detail, but a steadier relationship with the moment. That matters. It means the hidden work is not only changing circumstances, it is changing how you stand inside them. If you were once tempted to treat every delay as loss, you may now see that some pauses are protecting you from an early exposure that would have harmed the process. Not every door that stays closed is a punishment. Some are shields. Some are merciful boundaries that keep the growth from being crushed too soon. What feels like restriction can sometimes be preservation. And so the seed image gives way to a different kind of knowing. The life inside the soil is not trying to become something else. It is becoming what it was always meant to be, in the time and manner that makes sense for its design. The same is true for you. You are not being asked to invent a future from fear. You are being invited to receive a shape that is already being formed through truth, patience, and careful attention. That is why your inner life matters so much right now. It is the place where direction and fear keep trying to borrow the same language, and only discernment can tell them apart. Somewhere in the world, another listener is feeling the same quiet recognition, and another is realizing that the question has been speaking all week. There are people in different cities, different homes, different hours of the day, all standing before the same unseen threshold. They are not identical, but the recognition is familiar. They know what it is to feel the pressure of something important without having full clarity yet. They know what it is to wonder whether they are being prepared, redirected, or simply taught how to wait with dignity. That shared experience does not make the burden lighter by magic, but it does make the moment less lonely. And loneliness often weakens discernment more than the problem itself. If this message has brought you to the edge of a cleaner decision, then I want to point you back to the resource that can help you carry it forward. The Call of the Chosen. A 30-day journey is there for the listener who realizes that recognition without structure can fade by nightfall. It helps you move from vague sensitivity into practical reflection, prayer, and daily discernment, so you can see the next faithful step instead of spiraling in circles. This is why many readers return to these pages when they enter a new season. To access the ebook, go now to the top of the comments and click the link in the pinned comment. You do not need to force the future. You only need enough light for the next step. When you think about the seed now, you can feel the difference between concealment and loss. Concealment is temporary. Loss is final in a way. Concealment is not. The hidden season can feel long because it asks for trust without evidence. But trust is not a weak substitute for truth. It is how you stay connected to truth before the evidence catches up. You are not asked to pretend the soil is easy. You are asked to believe that hidden does not mean forgotten. That single distinction can change the weight of your day. If you have been living with tension in your chest, you may need to make peace with slower movement. If you have been trying to prove the season too quickly, you may need to let it speak in its own time. The seed does not consult the field about its pace. It follows the order built into its becoming. So do you. Not by force, but by faithfulness. Not by pressure, but by patient alignment. And when that starts to settle into you, you stop demanding that every hour provide confirmation. You may also begin to notice more clearly which voices feed your fear and which ones feed your clarity. That difference is not small. Some voices make everything feel urgent, as if the whole meaning of your life must be settled before sunset. Other voices help you breathe, think, and keep your hands open. Discernment will often be found in the quality of the voice, not the volume. A wise word does not always shout. Sometimes it simply steadies the soul long enough for truth to be heard. The Friday in the title can become, for you, a remembered threshold, instead of a prediction you must control. It can mark the day you stopped treating your inner unrest like a nuisance and began treating it like information. That does not mean everything becomes easy. It means you stop wasting energy denying what your spirit has already registered. And once you do that, even ordinary tasks begin to carry a different dignity. Washing a dish, sending a reply, turning off the light, sitting in silence. These can all become places where you remain awake to what matters. Type "I belong to God" in the comments, not as a demand, but as a declaration that you are choosing identity over confusion. Let that sentence settle into you before you move on. Then return here and keep listening. There is strength in agreeing with what is true before every feeling catches up. You are learning little by little that the season does not own you. It can shape your attention, but it cannot define your worth. It can press on your patience, but it cannot erase your place. It can expose hidden fears, but it cannot name you more accurately than the one who calls you. That is the turning point. Not that everything is answered, but that you no longer let uncertainty sit on the throne of interpretation. The root of the struggle loosens when fear stops being the interpreter of your life. So hold the signals with care, not panic. Hold the tension without making it a prophecy. Hold the hidden work without dismissing it as nothing. What is being formed in you may not yet have the shape you expected, but it is not random. It is moving toward recognition, and recognition is what lets peace return to the room. The seed does not apologize for the dark before it opens. It simply continues until light reaches it. And that is a fitting way to understand your own becoming. You have not been abandoned to a meaningless delay. You have been placed in a moment that asks for attention, humility, and a steady heart. You can feel the difference now between a fear that rushes and a faith that waits. You can sense the contrast between pressure that performs and obedience that listens. That is the path forward, not a dramatic leap, but a faithful response. Not a forced answer, but a clearer yes. And as you keep moving in that way, the hidden becomes less threatening because it begins to make sense. What you carry from this Friday is not a superstition, but a recognition. It is the understanding that some moments arrive to wake you, not to overwhelm you. Some days ask you to notice before they ask you to act. Some signals are meant to bring you back to your own spiritual honesty. So keep the seed image close, but do not worship the image. Let it do its work, and then let it lead you back to your real life, where the next faithful choice is waiting. Maybe that choice is to slow down long enough to hear. Maybe it is to stop asking the wrong people for the right kind of clarity. Maybe it is to protect your inner room from noise long enough for truth to settle. Whatever form it takes, do not mistake it for a small thing. Small obedience is often how large understanding enters. And when you begin to live that way, the season becomes less like a threat and more like a teacher. You are not being asked to perform certainty. You are being asked to remain available to truth. That is why your body can relax, even while your questions remain. That is why your mind can become quieter, even before the full answer arrives. The seed does not need to know the whole field to trust the next inch of dark. Neither do you. Stay with what is real. Stay with what is forming. Stay with what keeps calling you back to faithfulness. Some of you needed this word because you have been punishing yourself for not being further along. Some of you needed it because you have mistaken waiting for wasting. Some of you needed it because the silence has been so long that you started treating it like a final answer. But it is not final. It is a attention. You need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.